push beyond what you know. Take chances, take the team with you, be thoughtful and be open to engaging with the team, be open to pushing back upper management and allowing for the team to flourish and grow. There's valuable ideas that can flourish and also help the studio as a whole. And just make sure that you are setting everything up and stand back and learn that you don't have to walk the entire process. Let them figure out what comes next and take a huge step back. And I think if you do that, then everything naturally falls in place.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we sit down with executive leaders to explore what leadership really means through the lens of their stories, their wins, their struggles, their vision, and their lessons along the way. I'm Ty Hammond, founder of One Mountain Leadership and creator of the True Leadership Approach, an awareness-based path that helps leaders shift their focus from what to do about their problems to how to grow from them. Whether you're just stepping into leadership or are well-seasoned and at the top of your game, your potential won't be realized following someone else's script, but you can draw insights from their stories and turn it into wisdom by putting it into practice in your own life.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we explore the essence of leadership beyond tactics and performance by sitting down with executives to hear what matters most to them. I'm your host, Jessy James, and today's guest is Eduardo Gonzalez. Eduardo is a visionary creative leader and Emmy-winning art director who builds worlds for audiences to fall in love with. With over 25 years in games and entertainment, he has helped shape globally recognized IPs including League of Legends, Arcane, TMNT's Splintered Fate, and Netflix's Rebel Moon. As studio art director at Super Evil Megacorp and former world-building leader at Riot Games, Eduardo blends artistry with disciplined execution, scaling teams, defining visual DNA, and delivering AAA experiences on time and on budget. His passion lies in immersive storytelling, developing original universes, and leading collaborative teams that bring iconic franchises to life. Eduardo, it is such a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
A pleasure to be here, and thank you for that intro. It was humbling.
Fantastic. Eduardo, I'm curious, who is someone from your early life, or it could even be an early experience, that shaped the kind of leader that you are today?
So that is a more difficult question in a sense because it's literally about family and how we just grew up and stuff. But to narrow it down, make it a little bit more simple, my father was a huge part of it. He was someone that took challenges and just really just forced it and says, let's get it done. I don't care what it is. Whatever we ended up kind of confronting, it ended up getting done. And he didn't have experience, or he never did that part before, but he was more of like, you know, he had these sayings that he would say that just kind of like always were a part of me and how he was. So it kind of started with like, you know, just find a way. That's it. Just find a way, or take charge or get out of the way. He would say things like that, almost even maybe try to either make me think like a leader or something like that. But he would say things like that. One of the better ones is like, if you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. You know, I can say a whole bunch of them, but one of the more direct is do it right or don't do it at all. Like, and so that's kind of where I get my grit and my very directness. And I'm like, no excuses kind of guy. You know, so it's like, there's no excuses. We'll find a way, because I've seen it done before. And I've seen my father do things that I don't think he even knew were going to go right. So that's there. I think like my career, throughout my career, I think like Riot Games was really the best place to kind of learn to be a leader. And I think, you know, before that, it wasn't that great. And I was in a place where a lot of my leadership was based off of just execution. So everybody in the past, and I don't want to name names or studios, but they were just like, who cares about the team? Who cares about, it's all about getting the job done. And so I kind of learned bad habits, had bad managers and directors, and we got amazing things done, but it costed. The team would either leave, people would look negative on me. But Riot Games was a lot different than that. And very early on, I knew this was going to be a unique place. So yes, I can go down the list of all the people that I learned from as I go. I can give you 100 names, but I'm just going to round it down to at least 3. And hopefully this gives you an idea as to how I got influenced by these 3. But I won't go into depth, but I just think it's worth mentioning that they were the ones that stood out. And also they, to this day, probably didn't realize that they were that much of an impact on me. It's not like they sat down and said, let me show you how to be a leader. Like maybe one of them did, but I'll start with Steve Snow. And if he's listening, he's an amazing producer. He's an amazing person. I think he was really very much like acted like my father, very strict, very upfront, and very aggressive in his approach. But he was also very smart, very strategic, and very empathetic and present when he spoke to you. So it's like he got a little bit of both, which I absolutely loved and I can relate. And so you don't get to give away the, hey, let's make something amazing because that's what we're here for. But he also did it in a way where he really thought beyond what the ask was. He said, here's all the things I want you to do. Here's how we're going to do it. And let's make sure we have fun doing it. And those things were part of his DNA. He didn't have a system. He just was that guy. So I really liked him. The other one is Mark Merrill. He's the CEO, co-founder of Riot Games. And very indirectly, early on, I had a lot of access to him. We were in the same small studio as a startup practically. And his office was right next to my desk. So I got to hear him and see how he led, how he built a company, how he made it into a huge company. But a lot of things that he did were amazing. And that is, there was a lot of things at stake, a huge amount of, like, we were being secretly, we didn't know at the time, but we were being purchased by Tencent, or there was like some kind of transaction. And then on top of that, our player base was growing so much, and you could easily see all the money flowing in, and focused on the money, focus on the product, focus on the, like acquisitions or partial acquisitions at the time. And all he talked about was the team. All he talked about is how we felt, how the player felt. And he kept everybody focused, extremely focused on how we felt and how we want the player to feel. And I don't know if he knew all of that, but I'm always the kind of person that just pays a lot of attention and creates a pattern. And the pattern was he kept doing that. He never relented on that. He treated everyone with respect. And so I just kind of like always paid attention, and I'm like, I'm just going to take lots of notes. Probably the best thing that I ever did. And he never let all of that stuff get to his head, even when it just got crazy. It became worldwide. It became a huge big deal. League of Legends became, some of the venues were bigger than even Super Bowls and big events. Think about like the biggest events. League of Legends brought in either an equivalent crowd or 10 times more. And even then he stayed very, very humble and very present, which was rare for someone in his role, and also for someone that had so many things to juggle. So I really appreciate him, and I think that really made me the way I am. The other person is Adam Murguia. He was the studio art director of Riot Games, and I know that it was me and Alex that were left. We were looking for someone to take on the reins of art directing, because we were just like, yeah, we can art direct, we can make games, but this thing is getting so big that we couldn't do it. So we ended up hiring our replacements in essence, but it was the best thing ever. He did everything right. He pointed us in the right direction. He became really the anchor, also the North Star to what we were doing in the art department. And also the one thing that he did was, when you ask for something like, I want to try that thing, I have an idea, I want to build this thing, and he would just be like, how do I open the doors for you? And there was the scary thing is that there was no pushback. But that's what was so scary, because then you like open your mouth and let's try that. And then you're like, okay, cool. Yes, let's try it. And then you're like, oh, how do I do it? It's exciting, but also scary. And it's how I ended up kind of deciding to say, hey, I want to build the entire world of League of Legends and do it in a way where it's like an umbrella IP to even the League of Legends games. And it was if you were there at the time, it was the worst thing you want to say, because League of Legends, the game, was king. And we're like, we want to build something, an umbrella kind of IP above that, and make movies, make TV shows, make all that stuff. And he's like, okay, let's figure it out. Let's get everybody on board. And he let it happen. So he was just unapologetic, go, do it, try it. Failed, you failed. And if you didn't, he helped you and succeeded, and very rarely took credit for any of his parts. So that's him. And hopefully I'm long-winded, by the way, but the other and most important thing is, as a leader, Riot Games' massive growth made me the best possible leader. Not only did they spend millions on trying to make me the best possible leader, everybody, by the way, but like it's just like, it's how fast it grew. Every 6 months we had to rebuild essentially a new studio. Every 6 months we had to restructure the art org. Every 6 months what we thought was working isn't working anymore, because we were twice or 3 times bigger. And it was growing so fast that I learned how to build a, small, medium, large, extra large, teams from multiple buildings and multiple like cities, to even building teams that were collaborating worldwide. We had 19 offices and we were the headquarters of them. And so just being able to hire, set standards, and style guides on the art department, like just build something that communicates even across the planet. Those are all things that little by little, it's like, how do you do that? And how do you do that, obviously, at the, like functional level, but also in terms of people? How do you make sure everybody's happy, growing? How do you make sure you're not part of the problem? How do you make sure that when we grow and when we are asking for things, and you're not setting people up for failure? That's one of those weird things where like you can do all the things right and then set everybody up for something that they weren't successful for. So like knowing ahead of time how you hire, the type of people you hire, at what level, and at what stage. So long story short, I got like 30 years of experience in 4 years at Riot, because we rebuilt the company from the ground up every 6 months. And I'm not exaggerating.
Those are some fascinating stories, Eduardo. And I'm curious, what does true leadership mean to you? What, from your perspective, makes a true leader?
All right. The easy answer is integrity, vision, empowerment, and also finding a way to replace yourself. And all those things are 100% correct, especially in the game industry. But I have a personal structure that I built for myself, and I want to make sure that all 3 of those things are involved. And I call it my 3-prong yin-yang approach. Yin-yang is 2, but I think there's 3 major things that need to be, like I call them ingredients, right? 3 ingredients that need to be there, and they need to be there as forces, individual forces that are constantly trying to dominate the situation, right? So obviously the first one is just teeing things up in a golf, like teeing it up, like if you know golf, that's, what that means, but setting it up, having a plan, making sure that everybody has the North Star, everybody has the thesis, the high level understanding of what we're making in the first place. Nobody should be asking that. So setting that up is extremely, extremely important. Without that, it's kind of hard to lead. If you do everything else right, but nobody knows which direction we're going, that doesn't sound like a great leader. So I think you just need to know what it is that you're making, how you're going to make it, and then, have a strategy on how you're going to execute on it. The other thing is having a very aggressive touch. and I know that sounds kind of like, how do leaders do that? But I I do think that it's a part of it. It's a get it done. It's part of what my father taught me. And it's also some of the things like Steve Snow and how he kind of gets respect because he knows how to balance it. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But achieving the goal at all costs is something that is not the greatest thing, but achieving the goal at the highest level. And that means that you have to push people and avoid mediocrity. Like that's the main thing. You don't want to make something that everybody's making, because then it's not, why are you making it for? So just push and be super aggressive on pushing everybody to say, let's not land in mediocrity. Let's land at the highest possible level. And that's not the best place sometimes people want to hear, because they're like, I just want a paycheck. I want to show up and I want to love my job. And you're kind of pushing them. So it's dangerous, and inspiring individuals to kind of like go outside their comfort zone. Have them do things that they've never done before. And they're like, you hired me for this. This is not out. Yeah, I know. But like, I want you to, I see something, they try this, and let's go outside, because what we're trying to also do is make a game or a product that is outside the norm. So it takes all of us to try and understand that, and pushing outside of our comfort zone means that you're not doing something, the same thing you were doing at the last studio. We want to see if we can push to the next level. And so pushing that can create a little bit of tension, can create a little bit of question as to like, is he there for me? Why is he pushing me so much? Why? All of these things can create a little bit of discomfort and some situations where you might have to almost have the team trust you. And that kind of leads to the next one is like something like pushing them so hard that sometimes, emphasis on sometimes, they have to blindly trust you. And that is because sometimes the team, you're trying to go somewhere else, and they're like, where are we going? I know how to make this. I know how to do this, but now we're pushing it. So you do push to the point where like, and in some occasions, they just need to trust you, and you have to earn that trust, by the way. If you don't earn it, they're not going to follow you. So that leads us to the last part, and that's the guided soft touch, the thoughtful, empathetic place. When you push that hard, you have to be careful, and you have to understand that people are going to be skeptical, and they're going to be, very wary and maybe defensive. And so you have to be okay with that. So you make sure that you focus on, and you make sure that they enjoy the process, that you don't have to push hard, and you skip enjoying the process, and you skip making them understand that this is fun. It should be fun making this, even if it's something outside of your comfort zone. So, and then of course, default to trust, and not, they have to trust me and blind trust and all that stuff. But I think the other way around, I think I go straight to trust, and I trust them. They have to like prove that they're not trustworthy, because I'm going to trust you. Whatever you say, whatever you want to do, let's try that. Let's do this. You keep it open, and you let them have a big say. And that's going to be really important. I do always believe trust, but verify. So I do want to make sure that I do my homework, and don't, trying to help somebody and trusting somebody might hurt the team. So I want to make sure that the project and the team and are all well protected, but I'm going to just go for it and say, like, what do you want to do? Let's do it. And I think a little bit of Adam Murguia's in there. It's like, because they trusted me and I delivered, and I want to make sure that I'm not the only one that could do that. There's a lot of people that can do that if you give them the chance. A lot of leaders, they have, diamonds in the rough right around them, and they never utilize them because they just do not trust them enough, and they should, because they'll surprise you. I believe that, by the way. And then growing and empowering people, like make sure that they're learning, and they're learning something, sometimes what they want to learn. It's like, I want to try that. Let's go there. Let's go do it and use it as a growing opportunity, as a learning opportunity, but it's helping the project as well. And then empowering people, like just saying, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? How do I help you achieve that? I want to learn how to be a leader. I want to learn how to manage. How do we do this while we're in this journey, while we have to make this amazing product or game or whatever? And all of those things could be true. So that's it. All of those three things is really how I defined my version of good leadership. And then after you set all those three things up, you sit back and let amazing people amaze you, because you don't want to micromanage.
Fantastic. What's your vision for your leadership, your legacy, or the impact that you want to have in the years ahead?
I'd like for leadership to be a lot more intentful on making something, having a purpose, not just leading for the sake of leading. Sometimes we just say, well, let's be good leaders. But why? Why do we want to make a group? And why is there somebody leading if there's nowhere to go and there's no goal? And so I do think that sometimes we choose to make something and choose it to make it together. And that's fun and that's great. But I want, especially in the game industry, I think a lot of games are starting to feel similar. And I want leaders to just find a way to grab a whole bunch of amazing people, and within budgets, within time frames that they're given, find a way to have fun, experiment, brainstorm, and come up with amazing things. That's what people want. When I became, when I got into the game industry, I never thought I need to be in a team and it needs to be perfect and amazing culture and all that stuff. I saw this movie and I played this game, and I want to make stuff that made me just completely explode in excitement and made me go to school and spend the rest of my life trying to achieve that goal. I want to make something like that. And so that's exciting. And I want to be around people that are like-minded. But in essence, I think that's how I want leadership to turn into. I want them to lead people into amazing things. And I think we can push a little bit more. I don't think we're doing the best job. And I think that's kind of how I see it. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, yeah. Goosebumps. But I'm curious also, what are the ways that you feel you need to grow personally in order to realize this vision?
It's really, I'll just reveal a little bit. I had to learn that I wasn't the only person with an imagination, with a vision. I had to learn that I wasn't the only person on the team that can be creative. And in fact, I was being taught the opposite. I kind of hinted earlier that there was that in the past, people are just saying, just go, go, go. Well, to be more specific, when you set up an art style and or a vision for the team, if you included other people, that you were seen as weak. You were seen as someone, well, we put you there because you have to guide them. If you're going to tell them to guide you, then maybe you're not a leader. And then on top of that, it feels like there's this bad thing that happens where people lead by committee. And that's terrible because it ends up being a Frankenstein kind of product, and it's not cohesive and it's not well thought of. So we have to be very careful that we don't create, there's a fine line between Frankenstein things and working together and including people in the creative process. And I think that if you're very careful and do it right, you can bring the entire team along in the creative process, because I have learned over the time that if you leave any of the creative process on the table, that is a shame, because just me alone, I think they do a better job we do a better job as a group than me trying to solve it all by myself. In fact, everything that I've ever seen that I've done by myself, okay, it came out great. The products were great. Players received it well. But the things that I did as a group were amazing, were well thought out, were deep, and it had every perspective on the team. And I just feel like I would never, ever go back to just me trying to solve it by myself. So I think leaders just need to say it's okay, and you don't have to solve everything, and you don't have to do it by yourself, and you don't have to be a delegator. You can actually be a collaborator, be a partner with your team. And yes, somebody has to make all the right decisions, and somebody has to guide and make sure everything is pointed in the right direction. And that's your job, but include them. And so that's kind of how I've learned to be a better leader. That's how I've learned to include the team. And honestly, I'm in it to make better products, and that really makes a better product.
Where do you feel most tested right now? What challenges are stretching you the most, both in leadership and in life?
I think it's just the dynamics of the team and how it grows. And, people always say replace yourself. And it's great when you're working at Riot and you kind of replace yourself. But as you grow, as people grow, whether it's your fault in terms of their success or their hard work and they got there, whatever it is, people grow and they grow out of their role. And sometimes they grow out of their role and there's nowhere for me to get out of the way, because sometimes you replace yourself and then in small studios, they're like, well, there's nowhere else to go. And so they grow and they get the same roles that I have somewhere else, and I'm happy for them, and it's amazing. But it's constantly at a small studio. It's constantly just helping people, growing people, and then having them be okay in the current role. And of course, I understand that they now have more aspirations, and this is great, but not so great for me because I have to kind of rinse and repeat, and I'm in it to make amazing games, and we have to get new people and all that stuff. Then that becomes a little bit more difficult. Some of that stuff is kind of happening, and it's challenging at the smaller studio kind of level, but I wouldn't have it any other way, of course. But it is one of my bigger challenges. Is people go off and are being successful and growing beyond the role in our studio, and I love it, but it's a toll on me.
Got it. So this last question is more of an invitation. You have this time and space here to offer to our listeners whatever it is that is most in your mind and heart. Anything at all. Take your time. The floor is yours.
I think I've already said something like this, but I think leaders just need to be a little bit more kind of courageous, push beyond what you know. Take chances, take the team with you, be thoughtful, and be open to engaging with the team, be open to pushing back upper management and allowing for the team to flourish and grow, because there's valuable creative space there. There's valuable ideas that can flourish and also help the studio as a whole. Mm-hmm. And then just make sure that you are setting everything up and stand back and learn that you don't have to walk the entire process or walk through the entire process with the team. If you hire correctly, if you've got the right people and right leaders, and where it's leads and leadership structures in place, and everybody is set up to grow and to mentor, you've done that part. Let them figure out what comes next and take a huge step back. And I think if you do that, and it's as simple as that, honestly, then everything naturally falls in place. Sometimes 1,000 things are worrying you. And all you have to do is worry about setting it up and worry about making people happy and making sure everybody's got someone to manage and or to follow. And you have less worries if you set that up and try, because you get kind of jealous. This is something that most leaders probably, I don't even know if I should say, but I get jealous because sometimes I'm like, I love what they did. I wish I was a part of that. And when they just go off on their own, they do surprise you, and you're like, that was better than what I was thinking it should be. They go way above your expectations. And so I just want to, I want to be able to say, like, yes, some of my family members don't work in the game industry and they work in other more corporate spaces. And the contrast about letting people be them and how people are pigeonholed and how they just kind of just do your job and they're compartmentalized. I think I tell some of my family members, I wish you guys had it like the way we have it. And I think it needs to spread in other industries. And I think people should and allow people to speak their minds and to really stop and listen instead of you do all the talking and you do all the directing. It's like sometimes just listen to your team. They might even make you a better leader.
Fascinating. I really appreciate the wisdom that you shared here today with me. I've gotten so much out of this conversation, and I'm sure whoever's listening will benefit equally from what you've shared. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Eduardo.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you listening to me.
Pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the True Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by One Mountain Leadership, where we help leaders grow the capacity, confidence, and presence of true leadership through the True Leadership approach. To learn more about the approach, our offerings, our community, and how we can help you realize your potential in both leadership and in life, visit us at onemountainleadership.com.